know a better theory. So what keeps science going is thinking, this isn't the whole story. There's something more to find, right? So you've got this, which is incredibly dynamic since the modern period. So birth, fundamentalism, suicide, neo-pragmatism is where a lot of liberal, this is a very liberal point of view. You're pragmatic, but if you're too uncertain, you're not clear what you're being pragmatic for. I want to save the world, but I don't know from what. You know, an awful lot of liberals, and you're right in this box here. You know, we all get together. We'll have a stand. You know, what's it called? You know, they go to the WTO and stand outside and have a protest, and then people say, "Wow, what would you like to see?" Well, I don't know. We don't know what we want. We just don't like this. Give us something different. What would you like? Trump? No. You know, what would you like? Clinton? No. We don't know what we want. You know, because this is the typical problem. You look at the Democratic Party; they're completely united in being ununited. You know, they have. That's not my fault. You just read stuff about the Democratic Party and all, or disagree. So this is my map, my cognitive map, and I think it's useful. I don't think it goes any further, does it? Oh no, I don't know what that is. I don't know what, but so when you think of the cognitive map and you plug different individuals in, you have all kinds of opportunities to. So, for example, on the left, I would put Aristotle. You know, if you're trying to think what philosophy really focuses on the self, it's eudaimonia. Aristotle wants you to flourish in a society, yes, but the focus is your own flourishing. So it's the self that's being saved, right? On the community side, I usually pick David Hume, as we'll see, who thinks, as a contrast to the blank slate concept that Locke will give us, we're in a society. We're totally dependent on society, says Hume, and the things that we believe are the things, the values that our society teaches us. And when we learn logic and we learn to argue with other people, we use those logical skills not to logically argue for reason. We logically argue for the values that we already have. So we're in conflict with someone whose values are different. Logic doesn't really help us, because when you get right down to the root of the problem, they disagree with us over the values that we hold, right? And so you end up with logic being important, it always is, but at the same time, it's not going to solve the basic conflict between different value systems. And David Hume gives us the great line that reason is the slave of the passions. Reason is the slave of the passions. Because I will grow up to be rational and use reason, but what am I going to use reason to support? The values that I grew up, the things that I'm passionate about, right? So the community is kind of my opposite of itself. And by the way, as Americans, we're in a society that has all these different traditions. The uncertainty tradition comes from science, but also I put John Stuart Mill, a utilitarian there, and pragmatism also goes down there. We're pragmatic. We want to achieve We want to go forward. I love folks always using that expression. We want to move forward. And I'm like, which direction is forward for you? Right? Where are they going with forward? I'm for forward. We're all for forward, but everybody's going different ways. So we're not going to score any touchdowns. That's how we're playing, right? And then, of course, if you think of certainty as another one, I put Immanuel Kant up there, as you'll see, who gives us grounds for saying that there is a certitude. If you're a human, you have certain ways of viewing the world that are universal. And when we think about moral issues, we know what is morally right. We just are weak human beings, as Augustine says, and I know I should try to save that woman's carriage that's rolling out into the street, right? But the traffic is really heavy, and the chances are pretty good that I'm going to get run over myself. So I hesitate. Where do I run out, and save the carriage, baby carriage? And you discover that the baby carriage was empty and full with groceries. Sacrificed your life, cartload of groceries. No, sorry, that was terrible. Okay. So let me get to where we're supposed to be today. Religion is tragic. This is Aristotle, and basically Aristotle tells us that there are two kinds of narratives. One is tragedy, and the other is comedy. For many years, this was this held. Shakespeare. When you get to different Shakespeare plays, like King Lear. Have you studied King Lear yet? That's supposed to be a tragedy, but it's not a tragedy in the sense that Aristotle gives us, because a tragedy for Aristotle is where the hero does everything right, Jesus, and dies regardless, right? Still suffers and dies, even though he's innocent lamb, didn't deserve this, he's killed anyway, right? And that's tragic, and we all watching it suffer together, which brings us together as a community. By the way, the goal of this Greek tradition is to bring us together by watching this tragic play, and we're crying together, right? And Jesus has died, and he didn't deserve it. And that brings us together. We suffer together in our ceremonies, remembering this sacrifice that God has made for us, right? Comedy, by the way, on the other hand, the hero does everything wrong and still wins. And it's like, oh, no way! That's hilarious. It's not serious. It's comedy. It's ridiculous. Favorite example is Inspector Clouseau. The Pink Panther. The scene where all these evil assassins are trying to kill him. And he saves himself by dropping the roll of toilet paper and bending over right when the two of them shoot one another, and he doesn't even know it because they're using silencers. They're both dead. He goes outside. Someone grabs his briefcase. He takes it, turns it. The person goes like this with the knife, and he turns it around, and it kills the other assassin. Right? He doesn't even realize he's just wiped out all these world-class assassins that were sent to kill him. He's not even aware of it. Right? That is quintessential humor, following Aristotle's explanation of what a comedy is all about. But religion is tragic. And when we look at Jesus, well, I mentioned Jesus is considered to have definitely been alive. Yeshua, Barabbas, the son of the Father, right? Which, by the way, one of the stories is Pilate offers, to release one of his prisoners. And he says, "Who would you like me to release? Jesus, from Nazareth, or Barabbas?" And the people yell, "Give us Barabbas," because they've been bribed, etc. Right? Well, actually, an analysis of what Jesus would have been called by his followers is the Son of the Father. So actually, Barabbas was Jesus, if you think of it that way. And by the way, Pilate never thought, "Gee, I better offer them someone. Who should I release?" The Romans never did that. How did the Romans take care of this? Keep everybody to a pulp. That's how they do it. That's the way the Roman tradition worked. You get mad at them, you crucify them all along the road to Damascus, with every so many feet another cross with another Jewish upstart, all on both sides. So that anybody walking that road to Damascus, that's a long road, by the way. That means he killed something like 40,000 people by crucifying them. And in fact, it was such a tremendous horror that his boss, the emperor in Rome, said, "Better promote this guy and get him out of there." So they gave him a better job somewhere else. That's how Pilate left. So Jesus is considered there. I mentioned Josephus, Flavius as another example in his complete works, which are available. You can find that he refers to Jesus at least 4 times in his works in the history of the people. So we've got other sources that say that Jesus was there. But what was his life like? Well, we know he died, and we know he said things, and when you think about it, all the folks that question different things can't question the fact that he had followers that were absolutely exuberant about being his followers. So when you even look at histories, analyzing what can we actually know from that time period and so on, you can't doubt that he existed and had followers that believed in him and wanted to spread the good news, right? So we at least know that. And we can actually use the book of Thomas. So if we think about what textual references we have, the Council of Nicaea decided, in looking at all of the different texts that were available, that only 4 books should be considered to be part of the religion. That was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are all considered the synopticon, which means the one view, right? Because they're all relatively similar. And John is very metaphysical, very Greek, right? It's John, by the way, where it says in the beginning was the Word, and that word in Greek is logos. By the way, the New Testament was written in Koine Greek, or the common Greek of the period, not the educated Greek, but the common Greek of the period. And who wrote it? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Well, the thing is, only John knew how to write, as far as we know. So they're actually referred to as traditions. Traditions that came from Matthew, tradition that came from Mark, that came from Luke, and John may have written his himself, right? But there were other books, and one of them was the Book of Thomas. This was not found until relatively recently intact. The reason for it was the council said, "Nope, that's not a good text. Don't use that one." Why? Well, it was a text that was especially loved by Arius. And at the council, Arius, who is considered to be a Gnostic, gnosko in Greek means know, you know, I know, right? So a Gnostic, and there's a, how do you pronounce it? Good. Leave it out and just say Gnostic, right? So the Gnostics, or the Gnostics, believe in a special knowledge that's passed on